Boom. And we are rocking. What's going on, y'all? General Moses in the building. Welcome to Dream Chasers, your home for house music. And this is our first official episode in partnership with House of Hustle. Stoked for that. Thank you, House of Hustle, the whole team over there. Patrick, Marco, and beyond. You guys rock. This is going to be a lot of fun moving forward. Make sure you guys go to houseofhustleltd.com for all cool things going on over there with us. And now let's get into it. The story of Danny Quest. The storyline for all of this couldn't be any better. And here we are. Danny, DQ, DA, you guys call him whatever you like here. Uh, man, I couldn't. We were just talking about it. I was shocked that you're from Florida originally, based on your vibe.
Yeah. From Florida originally, spent the first like 25 years of my life there. I bounced around. I was born in Tampa originally, but I've lived in Orlando. I went to school in Tallahassee. So Florida is in me big time, and I've been in LA for 7.5 years now. So I think they're starting to bleed together. But yeah, I still visit Florida all the time. I love my friends and family there, and it's always going to feel like home to me.
The Scarface, speaking of vibes, the Scarface vibe that you've embodied. Now that makes a little bit more sense. Miami, I feel like is almost its own country just within the
Yeah,
US, you know?
sure, for sure.
But after living in Tampa, that was one thing initially. I'm like, man, I think I see Tallahassee on his resume. I see he was a drummer. Um, and let's go ahead, let's talk about that. Am I right? You were a drummer at one point before you got into house music.
Oh yeah. And that was like it was my whole life. I mean, like since I was 10 or 11 years old, I was playing drums and played drums all the way through, my 20s, and I that was my identity. I played in so many different bands, anything from hardcore to southern rock to jazz. I played on drumline in high school and was
Oh,
captain of
nice.
drumline.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
like and I loved that. I loved that part of my life, and it was such it just built the foundation for like my love for rhythm, my love for groove. And there was this transitionary period when I was 18, 19 years old, where I started hearing real dance music, for the first time, because I used to listen to certain electronic records when I was younger. Like I had like the Darude like CD, the one with Sandstorm on it. Like I had that like in
Oh,
my CD player.
what year would that have been?
So you're like, and I was like, oh, had to have been like 2004, right? Or
That's
something
what
like
that's
that.
what I was like trying to unpack is
Like, I'm not sure if that's accurate, but
but I love Tampa and I love our time there. But at no point did I go, oh, this is a house music city. I wish it was, but
yeah,
that's so it.
I feel like it's starting to get better, right? Like I like knowing Florida, I feel like as well as I do, and everyone knows that like Miami is like a mecca for electronic music. But Orlando is super international as well, and Orlando's got a ton of electronic music, great electronic music, and great artists that come out of there. But uh, I feel like Tampa's starting to bleed over there. It's not as strong there, I don't think, as it is in those other two cities. But it's interesting to watch this dynamic because I feel like the influence of South Florida is creeping north, and you can just kind of feel it. Like Tampa's changed since I was there when I was younger, and every time I go back, I'm like, this feels a little more Miami than it did 5 years ago.
Right. Well, I mean, I think for those who aren't familiar with Florida too, you might have to even just within what you said, define the difference between North, Central, and South Florida. Because I remember when we were there, I didn't realize just kind of the once you're in Florida, that is a big difference even between those three.
Sure. And the more that I travel amongst the United States, the more I feel like each state is a different country. That's how different it is, and within each state, it's so eclectic. Especially somewhere like California, New York,
Oh.
Florida. They're so eclectic. But anyway, so when I was younger and I was playing drums and I was in these different bands, and Florida has a really healthy music scene. So I feel like I got a lot of experience when I was in these different groups. Just what a musician should should try to focus on. What is it like to be a musician? You know, the struggles of trying to like find gigs and get your name out there, and all the way on the smallest scale of like inviting as many friends as you can to a show, all the way to like marketing yourself on a bigger level. Like I feel like those are just lessons I learned growing up, and when I was in bands and stuff like that, and I started to creep into electronic music. I found electronic music and almost never looked back.
Yeah.
It was just I thought I loved, you know, the rock music I played, like hardcore music. I liked all different things, but when I found electronic music, it was like game over for me. Especially house. House was just like it spoke to me in a way that I've never seen any other genre speak to me, and I just like 100 miles an hour in that direction. You know what I mean? I
Uh,
was locked in after that.
I love that, man. It's, I'm sure, a relatable story for a lot of us in different ways, but for you, um, playing in all those bands as a drummer, do you remember like the one moment where you were like, this is what I'm doing?
Like
Like,
as in like music, like saying like, oh, like I
because
knew I
because
want to
you're a
do.
musical, rhythmic
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
guy, but there had to be
Um,
that transition from rock or drum, being a drummer to DJ. Where did the electricity,
yeah,
figuratively and
yeah.
metaphorically, when did that
Yeah,
happen?
yeah. Well, I want to start with, since I was a young kid, I feel like being like a musician was my dream. Like, you know what I mean? Like I remember that from like being like, you know, 7, 8, 9 years old. Like that's what I knew I wanted to do. I didn't know what capacity I was going to be in. And then I think in like 2011, I went on this trip to Ibiza with my mom,
Oh,
because I
nice.
was begging. I wasn't really like, you know, I wasn't really old enough to go with a friend group at that point. So I was like, oh, like we were gonna do this trip. I've never been to Europe before, and I was like, we have to go there. Like that's where we have to go. And like my mom went with me, and we went to like Privilege, and we went to Pacha. I saw Tiesto at Privilege, and it was awesome. I saw David Guetta at Pacha,
Wow.
and
Wow.
I was on the flight back in my headphones, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. Like
Wow.
it was solidified after that. It was a crazy experience being able to be there, and then also like being there with my mom. It was like it was just awesome. You know, it was just such a like unique thing because everyone goes to their parties with their friends, but I was like just so mesmerized by that scene that like I remember how important it was for me to do it like right when I got home. You know?
Sure. Well, that era, especially in America, I remember that's really when it kicked for me too, was that 2010 to 2013 window. Um,
Was so huge.
right. And Skrillex paving the way. I think for at least for me personally, my entryway was like a lot of I still feel like a lot of younger people in electronic music, they get sucked in through the dubstep. And so that's where it
Mm-hmm.
started for me. And I just think like you were going to Ibiza in 2011 with your mom, which is dope.
Yeah.
But that's seasoned, well marinated a house music scene compared to America, where we were just learning how to do
Yeah,
it here.
totally.
So what
Mm-hmm.
what were like some of the biggest differences you noticed from a place that's existed for a much longer time compared to the U.S. that was so green at that time?
Well, it's a good question, and I feel like I remember enjoying, you know, like I remember enjoying like Rusko and Skrillex in their own capacity. Where like early on, I was like, oh yeah, like that type of dubstep was really cool. And obviously, Skrillex is, in my opinion, the best to ever do that genre. But I kind of like made it a point to seek out like house because I remember like there was like albums like David Guetta, like One More Love, and like things like that, which like really I was like, oh, this is so like this sort of that organic like melodic house sound was just so cool to me. And I would buy these CDs from like online that like you could only get like from Europe. So like I was like that was like kind of my pathway. Like I knew I wanted to seek that out, and I think that's why I went there in the first place because I was like I want to see this authentic, you know, to me, I thought it was like really authentic, like
Right.
style, you know.
100%.
We had, I remember going to my first EDC, like for EDC Orlando, and like, yeah, you have all the big room and the dubstep, but like the underground stuff was what really was like catching my attention. And I feel like in somewhere like Ibiza or even Europe, it's like underground is more main room. You know what I mean?
Right.
Than it would ever will be in the US. And it's now obviously it's a lot different. But like at that time, it was like, the people that you knew were Porter Robinson and Tiesto and you know what I mean? Like that's kind of
That
it.
was
Like
it.
no one really knew like tech house artists at that time because tech house at that time was so good. Like it's just like, it was so good. So yeah, so I thought that was really interesting that even at that age, I was like, I just was drawn to it, you know?
What do you remember? That's cool that you were buying CDs. Sounds like when your career as a DJ started. So tell us about like your first few gigs. Those are the ones, those are the ones
Yes.
you never forget, right? So
Absolutely. I mean, I just remember how excited I was. Like, I still am so excited for shows. I love playing shows, my favorite thing in the world. But I remember I got my first gig when I was like second year in college, and I got to do like this like fraternity thing, and it was just like during the day for a football game,
nice.
and
Which
I had all.
that's a religion where you went, football games. I know
Oh, big deal. Yeah, yeah. So, it's cool. It's cool in its own right. Like I felt like lucky, like be able to do something fun like that. And
but I'll have to show, I just thought my son and I, we have a picture of us in front of Doak doing the like the
that's
chop.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my dad went to Florida State, my mom went to Florida State, so I was taught as a young boy to be a Florida State fan. So it's in me, and I just love the culture there. It's really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I guess that was before like when you get your first DJ gig. Like I don't know about you, I never really had any. I was a DJ before I got into production. Like I had the Tiesto path. Like I was a DJ for a long time before I got into production. So like I didn't know what editing a record looked like. I didn't know like what cue points really were that time, and also the equipment was so different. So it was like
Right.
you're really like thrown in the deep end. I think like starting DJing at that time.
Were
You
you
know,
were you were you introducing that music? Did you feel like you were introducing that style of music to your friends at the time, or what were you
Yeah,
playing?
yeah. Yeah, I remember I was playing like Afrojack Bounce Little Kitty, which is like the weirdest record of all time. And like I would have girls at pre-games being like, turn this off. Like, what? Like, turn this off. You know what I mean? Like, I remember getting that all the time because it was so weird to play it at that time that people didn't
Sure.
recognize it. You know what I mean? It's like if you play, electronic at a college party now, it's like, oh, that's the staple. But like playing electronic at a college party in 2010 or 11 and 12, like yeah, maybe they knew some stuff, but they weren't into it. You know what I mean? We were
100%.
just you were just getting going.
They're
So
like they're like what they're
um
basically like, what's wrong with you? Why do you like this stuff that has no lyrics?
yeah, yeah. They're like, this is weird. Yeah, weird machine music. I don't understand. So that had to be a big adjustment. And there was only two or three guys really in that whole scene pushing it at that time. So it was such an eye opener, I think, for a lot of people.
Where do you feel like from there to building out your brand, where did you first start to see some momentum pick up and maybe even, promoters or venues reaching out to you saying, "Hey, we want you."
Yeah, yeah. I started well after I started DJing in college. I moved to Orlando and I worked in a sales role, and then I DJed like 4 nights a week. And the way that I did that is I went downtown and like Orlando, and I would go venue and be like, "Hey, I'll play for free one night. Like, if you like me, it'd be great to like pay me anything you can. I'll come back weekly." Like that. That's what I was doing. Like just
You were
like
not producing at this point.
not producing, still not producing, and I was like making like 150 for a night, and but it got me to understand like what it's like knowing a scene in a bigger city. I think that's like a really important step, like
Sure.
understanding how the promotion works, how understanding how the booking works, understanding how to play open format, understanding how to play to different crowds all the time and different vibes and different clubs. Like I think it's such a good education. And then my brother Cade decided that he was going to move to LA because he's also an artist. He's a fantastic songwriter. Respect the hell out of him.
What
But
genre?
he moved. He does like more electronic and R&B kind of kind of
Cool.
stuff.
Wow.
You could definitely check him out. It's Cade Music on Instagram. And yeah, he moved to LA and asked if I could DJ some shows for him. And I was like, yeah. So I started flying out, doing shows. And then I met Trevor Dahl from Cheat Codes. And yeah, he's shout out Trevor Dahl, one of the nicest guys in the world. And he's really done so much for me. And he was almost like he's a mentor and almost still is to me. And he got my project going, and that's when Danny Quest was like born. And then he and I were working together, and we did a record called "Not Safe for Work," and it did really well, and it was really exciting to see like me starting to get into the production world only for a couple of years, but I had the experience of being a DJ. So I feel like having the ear is like way more important than the technical at any stage. I feel like it's like you can come in with a good ear and you can over time learn the technical part. But I feel like the other way around doesn't can't produce total quality at times.
Right. No, it's such a relatable journey, I think. For me, like when I growing up, I played piano. My dad grew up playing the congos and bongos, and you had the background as a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you see things, especially probably even more vividly as time goes on in production world, where that foundation is like overlapping into your creations.
Yeah, totally.
I want to say something because you actually, in a way, you read my mind there on the cheat codes thing. Because I saw a video that you posted, and if this is House of Hustle, if we're not at this level yet, that's okay. But what would be cool is like as people are watching this, if we could clip to this video. So this is me praying and hoping that when I do this, we're gonna go to the video of Danny I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, but they might want to know.
Coming tonight, we're gonna bring him on stage. We haven't told him that we're gonna bring him on stage.
I
appreciate you being here, bro. We're wondering if you would do us the honor of joining us on stage today.
We're doing this? Let's go. You know I had to be dramatic, bro. Don't tell them. We're gonna film it.
Okay, we're back. So if not, whatever. But what I love about
I can send you stuff too. I'll send you anything you need. So
there's one where they were like, "Yo, do you want to come on stage with us or something?" And you immediately like throw your jacket. Let's go.
yeah, dude. Because like I've played like a lot of shows with them, and we have 3 records together. So and I've done remixes, blah blah blah. And there's times where they'll do these like they're doing huge gigs, and they'll want to do our song together on stage. And like I've been able to do like Ultra Croatia and Ultra Miami and EDC Las Vegas, and that one specifically was at the Kia Forum, and we had no conversation previously about me performing with them, and I was just hanging out with my boys because we're great friends, and then they told me about it, and I guess they wanted to like get it on film, but that's just what I do, baby. I'm pumped up all the time. So I was like so excited, and then I get out there and Kia Forum's just like massive, So it's really big shout out to those guys because they always like take me out for some of those big ones, which is great.
Well, I really hope we can find that video, and if not, we'll just link to it in the show notes so people can go see it. It's a testimony from my viewpoint of your character. That for you,
thanks, man.
Just be ready to just go like that.
Heck yeah, dude.
There are a lot of people that are not built like that, so shout out to your mom and everyone that raised
yeah, I'm gonna let her know. She's gonna watch this anyway, so she'll see.
Mrs. Larson.
Yeah. Hey, mom. But yeah, no, they're really great guys, and I definitely like want to give them a good shout out because they're a big reason why I got momentum, and a big lesson that that maybe some of the listeners might want to know is like it is important. It's an important thing to kind of like find someone that believes in you, that might be like a step ahead of you, that can teach you some things, bring you in, like be your support system. Sometimes when I see other artists, they make the biggest gains by being backed by somebody, and it's not an easy thing to do. And sometimes it happens by chance. Like with me, it happens by chance. A lot of it's, by chance, but you also like want to make sure that when that time comes that you have the talent, the enthusiasm and the work ethic, and that will be an awesome combination. And I think that will skip some steps for you. you know?
100%. And yeah, I mean, I just find it, I look at my journey and even how we initially got connected. Like, I remember the fact that, and we haven't created anything yet. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, whatever. But
Oh,
like,
we got some stuff cooking. I'm not worried about that.
but just the fact, and maybe you can remember that moment for you too. I'm sitting there looking at my DMs. I'm like, holy shit. Like Danny Quest just asked me for music. Like, wow.
Heck, because I love your music, and first of all, I appreciate you even saying it like that. I really believe that like I'm just get excited with people that I really F with, you know. I don't know if I just said the F word here.
You go
But
ahead.
that's what I mean. That's what I mean, you know, like I really love your music, your style, and that's it for me. Some people, when they want to collab, it's about A, B, and C. For me, it's just like, I think you're cool as shit. You know what I mean? Like that's it.
Thanks,
And
dude.
yeah, that's from my heart. You know what I mean?
It's mutual, mutual. Appreciate it. And I know before we got going, dude, we have, for everyone tuned in right now, we have like a list of 30 just absolutely badass questions that I don't think we're gonna necessarily get to all of them today because all these other questions keep coming up for me. Like I want to just zoom in on what you talked about from a connections perspective because
Sure.
for my journey, for example, like the real linchpin was getting into the tool room circles through the tool room academy, and that just opened the door
Mm-hmm.
for networking. Um, and I'm sure you've had many other people similar to cheat codes along the way that have like played a similar role, but I just want to take a moment for you to maybe just drop some wisdom on some of our viewers who are looking for that one connection who could change everything for them. How would you say you go about sourcing that initially? Like, what was it for you? Like, how did you and what was his name again from cheat code?
Trevor Dahl.
Yeah, how did you guys first meet, and how do you recommend other people go and do something similar?
So you know, I met him through my brother because
Oh,
they went on tour together back in the day, and Trevor asked Kate to move out to LA and room together. Like they were sharing this like bedroom with two twins, right? The
yeah.
smallest ones. Yeah, like that was it. And like I'd go visit them and whatever. And then we made a connection through that way. But that's just one specific example. Like, you know, Trevor's one specific example, but I think this applies to other connections I've had too. But it's really about overcoming your fears sometimes, because sometimes I can, at least for me, you feel like, oh, I hope something comes to me, but like it's not going to come to you. And you have to, like you with Tool Room Academy, you have to put yourself actively in circles. Sometimes those circles aren't going to be fruitful, but that's okay. You're not going to regret meeting somebody or making a connection. But if you do that every week and you try to make a connection every week, you're going to land on gold. And not because you're looking for connections, you know, to use somebody for theirs, but it's really important to make sure that you are social and you try to do your best to reach out to people you think are cool. And sometimes you're going to get shut down and it's going to feel like trash and you're going to be like, I'm not doing that again, but you got to do it again, you know? And it's hard I think for us as musicians, and you're a very social guy, but not all musicians are. Some people are really introverted, and that's like a very big ask for them. But if you're dedicated to pursuing this career, it's such a big key. And it's just like you have to do it and do it over and over, even though when you get no's, and that just sucks, but it's so important, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's what will propel you forward. And I think definitely one thing I'm personally excited about with working with House of Hustle now too is getting people even like yourself. Like I've seen you on a few podcasts, but man, there's some really talented people out there who have like zero to no interviews and tons of fans and followers that would love to just hear 5 minutes of what's going through that person's head. So
Mm-hmm,
um
mm-hmm.
on that note, keep in mind if you ever come across a DJ producer that you really like that you'd want to hear more from, just send the referral on over, see if we get them on the show.
Absolutely. I've got a few in mind, actually. You know, that's one of my favorite parts of being in our business, is that like it's really exciting to, you know, whenever you're focused on your stuff and, you know, whatever, and you're doing shows and blah blah, and you meet somebody that you really connect with, that maybe, you know, it doesn't have a ton of traction or whatever, and you're just like, oh, like this is it. Like for example, you know, there's guys that I from back home that like I've been playing with for years that I'm like, these guys are superstars. You know what I mean? Like they're superstars. And it's just like any chance I can like tee them up, like I always do. But it's like it's such a cool thing, you know? Like there's so much good talent all over the place.
What is it like for you going back home? Meaning, I'm sure there's people that you grew up with that didn't, you know, well, just didn't think that you were gonna get to the level that you're at now. Are you, when you come back to town, are people like, oh, DA's back in town? Do you ever do shows in Tampa? Like, what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, whatever, like, I think my friends like are so supportive and so great and like so nice to me. And I never really look at it like, oh, you know, like man, I'm going crazy far or anything. I'm always thinking like I'm just trying to do it. I'm trying to like I'm just so focused on like stay in it, stay in it, stay in it. And it's really cool sometimes to look back and be like, wow, like I'm still here. I feel like, you know, some people's metrics are like, you know, are you playing Bonnaroo main stage? But also you have to be proud of yourself as a musician to be doing music. Like it's hard, it's a challenge, you know. And like when I go back home and I get to see my friends, I love updating them. They love like asking me about what I'm doing. And like if I do shows at home, like everyone comes out and supports, which is like so fun for me. Those are like probably my favorite times. Like I don't get to play like Tampa a ton, you know what I mean? And that's like when I do, it's like you feel so much love and it's so great. And it's also a cool check-in for me personally, because it's like, you know, look where we are. We're like doing fun things. Like I wanted to be DJing and like we're doing it. You know what I mean? So that's always like really special, I think.
Gotta be. Yeah, gotta be. Um, let's talk about your Scarface connection.
Oh yeah. I so this yeah, the Scarface is it's such a specific um taste for I guess like you know as a musician and for musicians listening or artists listening, they'll definitely understand where I'm coming from. But there's so much to a brand, you know what I mean? Like there's so much like besides the music, even though the music is central, the most important and the thing that's going to ultimately propel you forward. I think there's other things about a DJ project or an artist project that need to be thought about. And I think when I think of like the visual brand or like what I'm trying to like have people relate to me or like kind of like think like, oh, if I think Danny Quest, I think this. I just kind of picked that 80s Miami vibe, especially the Scarface thing, as my thing because I think that's cool. Like I think that the movie Scarface is it's my favorite movie, one, but it's like I think that whole vibe is cool. And I just like thought like, oh, well, if I really like it and then I make that kind of like my visual brand, then it'll be authentic because I think that's what's dope. You know what I mean? So like I always like loved hot weather, tropical vibe. Like I think it's really cool. So the Scarface movie is really like a blueprint of like my visual brand.
Yeah, dude,
Um,
the branding
you
is
know,
yeah.
and you know you never know like what's gonna connect or not connect and like yeah like it doesn't seem like ultra creative on its face but it's like I don't think it has to be because I think it's great, you know. And to have something that you can align with or use as a blueprint I think is great for consistency. Me with my red hair, you know, I've been having this for 5 6 years and it's the stupidest thing ever. It's so simple but it's effective and people were like, oh yeah, like I definitely remember you. I've been playing in places like Ohio and security guards come up to me like, oh yeah, I remember you from last time. Just found that, you know what I mean? So like I think like the Scarface thing and the red hair thing is just what I picked to be associated with. And it sounds like it can be like oversimplified, but I also think it can be effective too, you know?
No, I mean, branding is so powerful. My background is, I guess, a little bit similar on the business side. I'm just now really getting into music, but I come from like a sales, marketing, and branding background.
Sure.
And it's just so critical. And I think it's one thing I'm sure you would agree to some extent. Like a lot of artists just underestimate how powerful all of that is getting started. And so to see that it seems like you figured that out quickly is really cool. The big question is the hair ever going to change colors?
Yeah, well, you know, short answer, no. Has it changed colors before? It absolutely has. During COVID, I went all over the place. It was a weird time for everybody, so I had to change it up a little bit. But it's definitely staying that way. It's like that on my driver's license, and yeah, man, keeping it red, baby.
Yeah. What was the experience like for you moving out to California, moving out to LA in particular for the first time? It's and my wife's Canadian, so I've even kind of seen how a lot of US cities are viewed by Canadians and I don't know, just throughout travel,
Yeah.
right? Like LA and New York, they are glorified cities, and when people get there, it's like, wow, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure you at some point on your journey experienced that. What was it like going from that to like being now like, oh yeah, LA is my backyard. I live here now. Like, what do you feel like you just learned through that whole process?
I think that's a great question because I think that moving here was such a huge part of my journey and it was such an eye opener. Um, I come from a place that like in Tampa where like within Florida is considered a big city, and I've been to smaller places in Florida where people think living in Tampa is the big city. And like I thought that concept is really interesting to me because like Tampa now seems like just such a smaller scale where it used to feel so big. And like when you move to somewhere like Los Angeles that is so massive, you kind of move here feeling like such a small fish and you're like, wow, this is intimidating. It's awesome. It's like everything they say in the movies, and you're like trying to take that all in the first year and you're like, wow, it's so exciting. But I think my biggest takeaway from living in a big city like Los Angeles is that like when you're going to support somebody's EP release, or you're like going to the bar down the street, or you're going to this restaurant, you're just among people who are doing similar things to what you're doing. And if you go to, I think like an EP release is a great example. If someone does an EP release, maybe in a smaller city, you might get the musician and some of their friends and family. Here, when you go to an EP release, you get the head of this record label, A&R for yada yada. Then you get, someone's publicist, and these are like every time you go to these things, you're like 10xing your connections. And that was like a big takeaway is like, oh, you wouldn't get this if you weren't here. And people like to make the argument, we got the internet, you can do anything from anywhere, which I agree. And it's the best convenience. But I don't think that it replaces the in-person connection sometimes. And you get a lot of that in a big city, especially, whenever I visit New York and go to a show there, it's the same deal,
Exactly.
And I think that's very valuable just to have that, kind of thing. And you learn a lot through how these people operate and how their work-life balance operates. And it's very motivating. It's very motivating to see all these people doing so well in all of these creative fields when you're just doing your best to try to keep up. It's very right. Exciting,
It's so true. I mean, growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, I remember probably up until about the age 22, you have this mindset, especially when it comes to sports. It's like Cleveland against the world, like
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And you travel around a little bit and you go, damn, like there's so much more out here.
There's so much more. Yeah, there's so much
Someone
more.
who stays there, they'll just never get it, and that's cool. Like that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel in particular the way you're describing, man, every time I go to New York City and I'm walking through wherever, Brooklyn, Manhattan, it's like, whoa, like I'm in the jungle right now. Like this is
yeah.
the place,
That's like what's so great about the US in general. Like, if you're just like looking at the United States and not Europe, it's like you have all these areas and you have these big hitter entertainment cities for sure. But like as soon as you travel around, you just see how eclectic everything is. And if you don't, and like you said, if you don't leave your town, like, that's totally fine. That's a way of doing it. But I do think that like you're limiting yourself to a state of mind that you can't really be as open as you could when you are well traveled and able to see other things,
Yeah. I keep thinking, I'm like, man, I got all these dope questions, but Danny keeps saying things that make me think of something else. Like you just said, well traveled, and what was the first point in your career that you started seeing consistently like, okay, my music is putting me on planes now? Like what,
Mhm.
just talk about that moment. I'm genuinely just curious because I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I've seen it through so many different points of leverage. Like when I started working with my brother Cade and DJing with Cade, um, that was my first taste of doing music, nationally and internationally. And I was like, I'm so grateful. This is what I want to do my whole life. But like, it's not Danny Quest. And then I would be playing as Danny Quest, playing with cheat codes, right? And like I'd be able to like support them at the same deal, nationally, internationally. I was seeing my music get traction internationally, and like that was a whole new experience. And then probably around like 2019, maybe. I really saw like, oh, Danny Quest is getting booked. And my first entry was like, I was like doing the college circuit. And that was crazy for me because just like when I was in Tallahassee at Florida State, and I thought those college parties were like the shit, now I'm like, oh, now I'm playing the parties. Like that was like so exciting. You know what I mean? So that was
Yeah.
probably like the first time where I felt like, cool, Danny Quest was like stepping out on his own. Where like before I was like, I'm playing shows because of this artist brand. Like I'm able to do this because of this. And it was like such a different opportunity. You know what I mean? To like do it by myself.
Right. Well, I now, yeah, I'm also wondering because I've seen since I've known you now, so probably I don't know, over the last 6 to 12 months, you've put records out that the branding looks like it might be an independent release. Are you self-releasing? Are you with a label? Like how
Yeah. 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 Not with a label and self-releasing. And do you ever feel like you learn a big lesson of the year, like as a
oh
musician?
yeah.
Because yeah, right. Like you feel like, I don't know. I just get done with 2022 and I go, whoa, won't do that again. 2023. Oh, I'm going to do this differently. Okay. So like this in 2023, what I learned is not to wait. Like, don't wait on a label. Don't wait on a collab. Don't wait on, what I'm saying, to schedule your music. Like, so,
Mm,
so I have been doing this year is the songs that I've signed to a label, fantastic. Those will come out when they come out, but I do not let it stop my release schedule. So
wow.
everything that's non-label, I'm gonna do independently, which I've got actually like one of my records this year that was independent. Got on like Operator, which is crazy. Like I don't even know how that happens. Like I feel like sometimes like those are so labeled like gate kept, but so like it got some good support in it, and it gave me some confidence to be like, oh yeah, I should be doing this. Like so if I have a label release in February, March, then I'll do an independent in April, May, and then I'll do a label in June. So that's what I learned from last year is like not to wait, because I waited for like a release date from a couple of big labels, and I was so excited about the release on those labels. And it gave me like a 3-month gap of no music. And I feel like in today's day and age, it's really important to be consistent. So that was my big lesson from
Man,
2023.
thank you for
You
sharing it
know?
because I just something I was
Yeah.
not thinking about at all. And my next question on that is just like how are you doing it? Because in my shoes, I feel like all I've been exposed to is like something called TuneCore. Like how
Yeah.
are you self-releasing?
So I've definitely released records on TuneCore. I released records on DistroKid. It's not the
Distro?
best. Yeah, it's not the best. I'm sure there's better ways to distro, like, but it works for me, and I do everything myself. So it's just what I understand, and I have a system with it where I can do it quickly, and it doesn't hold me back. And yeah, it's like
And the
nothing magic.
and like as long I feel like as long as the production quality and the consistency is there, it's like who cares? Let it rip. So when did you start realizing your production quality is kind of like and I'm sure there's always the journey to just get
Yeah.
better and better and better, but when did you first realize like, oh wow, this sounds really good?
So I definitely battle with this classic thing that I think a lot of producers do is like one day I'm like, oh, I'm trash. I'm so trash. And then like the next day, I'm like, oh, I'm fucking killing it. You know what I mean? So like that's constant in my life. But I definitely feel like after the first 5 years, I had a lot of confidence in it. And one thing that I feel like I made a mistake with in the past that I wish I didn't do to myself is that like when I would get a record finished, I'd be like, this doesn't sound exactly like Mark Knight. Like the record doesn't sound exactly like Mark Knight's record or Michael Vivi's record or whatever. And that's not a good metric. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I should have said, hey, this is the best record I've produced to date. Like, this is fantastic, you know? But like sometimes my litmus test was like the most competitive dance records in the world. And I don't think that's fair to do to yourself. So new producers, don't do that to yourself. Be proud of every state you're in. But I definitely felt like at the 5 year mark, things were really great. I was like doing some remixes where I felt really comfortable. And to any producers listening right now, I feel like remixing with real stems is such a get in the gym with production kind of vibe because it's like it's so I feel like it's such a great it's just a great practice, I guess, for producers. I
Yeah.
learned really fast that way, you know, like
I
personally.
definitely want your take on remixing is such a polarizing topic. There's
Yeah, sure.
some people out there that'll be like, don't touch it. There's some people who are like, yo, that's the way to really do it, at least initially.
Mhm.
So where do you stand on remixes?
I think, and this is my personal take. I think that doing remixes is healthy and a part of the DJ world. I think that's a great
It's
thing.
like taking your
Um,
vitamins.
it's like taking yes, and it's just like it's like yeah, exactly right. Got to stay healthy, but it's also you don't. I don't think you want to lean so much into remixes where you're known for just doing remixes. I feel like that's a little too much in that direction, but that's just my personal thing. That's for me. I wouldn't do that, but some people make a great career out of it. Like some people get paid lots of money to do that and go on. That's sick. You know what I mean? But I think remixes are just a part of the dance community and like such a big part of how things have always been that like I think there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what's your favorite remix that you've done and one that you want to do?
Fair. Actually, my favorite mix that I've done so far is one I just released called "Pick Up the Phone" on BLR's label. The artist's name Ice Leak.
Okay.
I was just really proud of the production on that one and thought it came out really really strong. I have done remixes in the past. What's really frustrating is when you do remixes and they don't come out. I did a remix for Weethan a couple years ago, and it just gets to all the way to the finish line, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're only gonna release one or whatever," So
Right.
that happens. It can be frustrating, but I definitely love the one I did recently, and in the future, it would be really exciting to do a remix for a major label with like a major label artist. Like ideally, if like Dua Lipa asked me to do a remix, I'd be so jazzed. You know what I mean? Or like just
Yeah.
do like a what I mean, Charlie XCX or like someone who's like doing like cool, almost like pop disco, pop dance stuff that like is known for their remix packs. Cause like obviously like, Calvin Harris has done things like that and whatever, but that would be like ultimate to do like a major label like remix like that. That'd be really cool.
What about one of your latest records? I don't know if you had any new come out since I last saw Party. Is Party your latest?
Yeah. Party's my latest, and it's this like Beastie Boys
That's kind is that do
like
you consider that a remix or how does I don't even know how that works. Like I would love to kind of sample some classics like that, but how do you do it the right way? Like did you have to pay them
here.
a fee or
Yeah. So here's how I've seen it. Sometimes I just like I feel like my opinions will change when you learn new information, right? Or like how like just when you go through this journey. When I first started releasing music, I was very much on the side of like, if it's not properly cleared with the proper thing, I'm not touching it. Like that's how I used to be. And I have seen, especially in the tech house world, especially in the European tech house world, there's samples that are used all the time. Sometimes they're like as long as the song, sometimes, or sometimes they're like 3 seconds. And I see people just kind of like roll with it. And on this one, I'm rolling with it.
Wow.
So yeah, and
Nice.
just rolling with it. And a lot of times I've seen, especially in the last like year and a half, there's been so many artists that do that. And if the song goes, that artist will be like, cool, you want to do this the right way. But a lot of times, if you don't have the ability or like the team to like access these people, you don't have the option. So I'm not going to let that get in the way of me releasing an idea. You know what I mean?
Right. I love, man.
So,
The
so
way I've
that,
been trained is like kind of what you were saying, how you first started is like, just don't even go there because blah, blah, blah can happen. But I think how you painted is right. Like if it,
it's
yeah, go ahead.
it's not like it's not by the book, and I'm not saying to do that kind of thing the wrong way, but like as DJs and like as people like who are in, like we were talking about the remix thing, like that's just like repurposing, resampling, redoing is a part of like kind of our MO. And
Yeah.
like, like sometimes you have to push it a little bit, like,
And I
and
feel like, yeah.
yeah, I was just saying, I did that with this record. So
Well, it's just like if the Beastie Boys are as cool as they appear, worst case scenario is like they reach out and say, "Hey, we want all the rights to this," but now you have a relationship with them,
boom.
like
And if that's how it goes, then cool. You know what I'm saying? Or it sits on my computer. Like I'm gonna like, and like we were talking about the don't wait thing. Like I've got these ideas I like. I want to put them out now, and I'm gonna do it. Like you know what I mean? I it really bums me out when I have a record that I'm excited about and I'm just like waiting for the right label or like the right time of year or whatever. And it gets to 2 years and then it's stale. It's like, no, I want to get these things out when I'm excited about them. And that's what I did with that record. And for the rest of the year, I've got about 5 more releases and 12 for the whole year. So
nice.
the output with music is really great this year, which I'm excited about.
What's the craziest gig you've ever played?
Craziest gig I ever played. Actually, last year I had a really great one. Avant Gardner in Brooklyn
I guess we
was
need to know what defines crazy too, right?
crazy as in
What
a
does it mean
big
to you?
show. Like I would say like people because like I'm like more in that like house world. So like the shows don't get like like with cheat codes, it's like they're used to playing these like thousands of people where like, I'm more like in the intimate club vibe and like, things like that. So be able to play like avant-garde with like 5,000 people was pretty wild, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It feels more high stakes, you know. Now crazy as far as what amazing party vibe. I played in Bol, Croatia, and Bol is like this island that you can only get to by boat.
Oh,
And it
nice.
was it was during Ultra Europe, and I got to get boat. But I took a boat out there, and then I got to play there. And there was like people in like a tree house and a gigantic dance floor, and like you're like on this island and beautiful weather. Now that's a good party, you know.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Bowl Croatia, so I'm like I gotta look it up here
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah.
So that's cool.
So yeah, check it out. It's like it's not big.
And so to get there, I'm just wondering you go into Split probably to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
nice. Bowl
Yeah.
Croatia, add it to the bucket list.
I think it's Club 585 maybe is what it is, but it's really sick. Oh man, it's a great venue. Absolutely amazing.
I'm gonna look that up right now, the club as well. If you could collaborate with any artist, dead or alive, who's the dream collab right now?
So I've been a Mark Knight fan for 12 years, 13 years. I'd say Mark Knight is like he's such a hero of mine. Um I've seen him, 15, 20 times. I think he's
What was the first Mark Knight record you ever heard?
I think it was Um, all right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all right. I think, or
Is that a remix? Like Sterling Void?
no, it's dun 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 dun. And then the other one I love too is Man with the Red Face. I think that was like the first one I ever heard the saxophone, killer. And I think that was one of the songs that like kind of took him off at that time. But he would definitely be my dream collab. I think his taste is fantastic, and one of the guys that I love seeing do well. Like there's certain artists that I think have like such great taste, and it's awesome to see those people flourish.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and he's, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I look up to him a lot as well from an integrity perspective. He's a dad, he's a husband. Did I see
Yeah,
age,
yeah,
by the way? I see that.
yeah. I got married in
Oh, Larry.
December. Yep,
Congratulations, dude.
and thanks so much. And yeah, I think it's a great point. It's cool to see him balance his family life and be as active on the road as he is. Like, that's a challenge, and to see him like jump over the pond, as they say, so many times a year, and like still find time to be with his son, and like that's like such an inspiration for me, because like you're a family guy, I'm a family guy, I value family like that. I want that to be a part of my life, and sometimes with music it seems like quite a challenge. And it can be, but it's cool to see how he does it, because I feel like he does a
Well,
great job.
I just like that he's really big on kind of breaking the stigma that once you hit 30 or whatever, like time to
Yeah,
party is over. He's like, we should be doing this until we die. It's kind of his
yeah,
approach.
yeah, yeah. I love that you brought that point up. I don't know if you're ever on TikTok and just like see random comments, but there's definitely like a sentiment of like people go as crazy as like, oh, like 25, time to hang it up, or it's just like that's just like a wild thing to me. I feel like, especially your 30s, like you're just like had a time in your life that's so rewarding, and like so you have so much energy, and like I don't think that just because you're a certain age doesn't mean you have to not enjoy the things you love.
Exactly.
Like you and I love club music. Like I'm always going to love club music. I'm always going to love dancing. I'm always going to love going out. It's fun. It's what I enjoy, and I'm not going to let anybody shame me for like doing those things after 25. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no way.
Exactly. There we go. That's a movement. We just got to keep moving, people. So spread that message far and loud. What maybe you shared this earlier, but who do you feel like you drew a lot of inspiration from as a child that got you to where you're at now? I know you mentioned Darude, and that's cool that you
Yeah, I
had
mean,
that
dude, like
memory.
the ironic thing is like how people will like comment on like dance pages and they'll be like, what's the track ID? It's like Druid Sandstorm, haha, like whatever. But like I really had that CD, and it's like crazy. Like I had it like when it was out. Like so, but like when I was a kid, I think most of my inspiration came from like people like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Linkin Park, and like
Oh, that's cool.
drummers that like really got me excited. And like I think it relates too, because like the rhythm section of a group or a band like is what house music is. Like house music is a rhythm section. You know what I mean? It's just like the instruments from a band are organic, and this is electronic, and I think that's why I liked electronic so much, is because it's such a cleaner sound. Like I really
Right.
love that.
Yeah. What about what is your sound from your perspective? What I've picked up on it is I think the branding makes a lot of sense with the kind of the Scarface vibe.
Yeah.
I think I saw you make a post one time. You're like, I got more dirty beats for you guys or something like that.
Yeah.
And you know what? I first found you through the Freak on Strange Love.
Oh yeah. I really I like that record a lot. I'm like I was excited about that one.
Danny, like there are some songs that like no matter how many times you listen to them, they still slap. And there's some songs that don't. There's some songs you got on your playlist, you're like, oh geez, I don't want to hear this one again. But I
Yeah.
gotta give it to you, man. I don't know how many times I listened to that record, but
Dude, that
okay.
means so much. I really, really appreciate that. I that one was really important to me too, like just like as a record, because I got to do it on Strange Love, and like, like I said, I totally look up to Mark Knight. He's like, one of my heroes. And I feel like that was like having that song like on Tool Room Radio and having Mark Knight like say my name and like introduce a song on the radio show, like that was out of body for me. I was like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like the coolest thing ever. Like that happened at the beginning of this year. And I was like, that's just like, I'm good. Like the rest of the year, like I'm good. That was amazing, you know? And if you ask like what my sound would be, I would think The Freak is a good example of it. Like I've always loved dark. I've always loved ominous. I've always loved epic. I've always loved groovy. And I feel like it captures a couple of those elements. But definitely my productions in general, like um, I like those cinematic, um, larger than life type of moments. You know, like when I see an artist live or like whatever, like I just love that whole entire like vibe, you know. And then more so than that, like what's in my heart and soul is groove, you know. Like I feel like groove is just like much more important to me than like a drop, you know. Like I think groove is so important. Now in combination with one another, like that's the perfect harmony, right? But like I love groove, so like Jada Liss and that kind of music is just like super cool to me. Big vibe. Take a lot of inspiration from him, Marco Corolla, things like that these days, you know.
So what about, because there's a bridge, because you have a record out also that I like a lot called Oxygen, which is
Oh yeah,
which is quite far from The Freak, but
very
both
very.
slap. And actually Oxygen I would argue
Thanks.
is like something, from what I know about Cheat Codes, I don't know all their records, but like that seems almost more like something that they might even play at one of their shows.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
you know, I feel like we're always encouraged as producers and artists and DJs to like, you know, get your sound, find your sound, stick to your sound. But sometimes you want to switch it up, right? So is that how you felt
Yeah,
with Oxygen?
sure.
Go ahead.
Dude, that's a great question because sometimes sometimes I can get like self-conscious about like, you know, oh, this is so different than like what I've been doing, and am I gonna throw people off? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, I don't think. And it's like it's cool to test something that may be different. And that was a record I actually wrote with Trevor and Melanie Fontana and Lindgren back in 4 years ago, and it was sitting. And I was like, this has to get out. Like it has to, you know what I mean? So like, that's how long that record was in play, like forever. And it
So
didn't
that
lose its
was
shine.
written, produced, everything, and just sat there for 4 years.
Like done, you know, and I had it like remixed like last year, but yeah, it was just like one of these things that I had such a powerful writing team behind it, and I just loved the way it sounds. And Melanie Fontana, the vocalist, was like the writer on the record, and she wasn't supposed to. Her vocal wasn't supposed to stay on it. We were thinking about like, oh, who are we gonna have? We had other people who it was pitched to that like wanted to do it, and we were like, no, let's keep her vocal on because it sounded so good. Um, but yeah, then I release a crossover record like that, and then I go right back to the club stuff. I think it's fun to have the back and forth, you know.
Yeah. Have you found yourself, and maybe this is just me like projecting because I've asked this on a lot of interviews, but I don't know. I feel like I see this trend with a lot of house music producers and DJs and tech house in particular. There's like this demon deep within all of us that wants to make like the dirtiest techno.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I have a couple records like that, but I have one record called Strange that I released in 2022, and it's definitely a techno vibe. And I'm releasing another techno record in October near Halloween, which is perfect. So speaking of demons, but yeah, I think that like all real true ravers have a
Yeah.
techno demon inside of them. You know what I mean? That like I actually, you know, LA, downtown LA. Speaking of Los Angeles and the scene they have here, has this insane after hours scene downtown. It's kind of hard to get to in certain areas, but once you get down there, you like see how amazing it is. And I played like a full techno set with Jason Rosenbaum, who actually manages Side Piece. But and he's like, hey, you want to play this thing? Like, it's gonna be dope. Like, we started at like 4:30 a.m. or something, and he's like, but you gotta play techno. And I was like, I'm ready, because I always have, you know what I mean? Like, I listen to techno anyway, so it's like I'm like, to have the opportunity to play something that I don't normally play is awesome. And you know, been DJing for so many years, it's just like, let's do it, you know? So
Yeah,
I feel like that's such a big part of anybody electronic music story. Like, you know, yeah, it's techno's great.
that's cool. Yeah, I feel the same way. And someone who I really admire that I think embraced that, like bridging that gap, is Eli Brown. And
Oh, bro. Ah, so good.
and he seems like a really cool dude too. I've been following him at least since like his tool room days, because he had much more
Oh,
percussive.
he used to be housey. He was way more housey, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, him and a bigger name that I feel like everyone knows, which I didn't even realize till like 6 months ago, that Hilo is Oliver Heldens. You know, he kind of went that way too. So yeah.
You know, I saw Eli Brown. So I've seen Eli Brown a couple times. I make it a priority to go to EDC Orlando every year because all my friends are from Orlando, and I got a lot of friends from Orlando. And one of our buddies who works with Insomniac will always like get us passes so we can get going. And I get in there and saw Eli Brown last year, and that boy puts on a show. And it's like his new, you know how artists will like they'll experiment and try different things, like whatever, right? That's his thing, and it's working really well for me, and it's connecting really well. And I think that's like why he's kind of stayed in that world, because like when you see him live, it's real magic. It's like some real main stage, like high energy, good techno. And he captures a vibe like nobody I've ever seen. Very cool.
And does he do is it something about like maybe his light show or presentation that like stands out to you as well?
It's I think it's his main, he brings like an underground sound to a main stage vibe, if that makes any sense. Like
Yeah.
he keeps things really tasteful and really cool, but they're epically huge, you know? And that's what I think we all kind of love sometimes. It's like when you see Carl Cox like at a festival or like whatever, like, you know, at the mega structure at Ultra, like it's like you're bringing such a genre that's like meant to be experienced on like such an underground level to like such a big world. And it's like that's such a cool thing. I think it's great.
What would you say? Do you have any rituals before you do shows? Do you have like a pre-show ritual?
Yeah, I get nervous. Yeah, I mean, like, you know,
Go ahead.
I definitely get nervous, like, but I think of nerves in a different way than I did 10 years ago.
Hmm.
When I was like playing in bands and DJing 10 years ago, I probably would have been like, oh God, you know, I hope I do well. Now I look at nerves as I care about what I'm doing, and
Hmm.
I'm excited to be here, and I can feel it physically. And I think that's awesome, you know? So I try that flip it. I used to like think of nerves as like negative. Now I think of nerves as positive. Like you're doing something you care about. You're putting yourself out there. You're challenging yourself, you know? And those are things that make me feel proud. So I would say that I don't really have any pre-show rituals, but I love the feeling of just about to play. That's my favorite.
Yeah, man. There's a speaker that I connected with once who, you know, he normally speaks in front of groups of like 5 to 15,000 once, and he was about to go.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's about to go on stage, and I was backstage. I'm like, do you still get nervous like before you go on? And he was like, every time, like just so you know,
Yeah.
every time.
Because that's real. That's real, you know? Like
Yeah.
it is. And I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
Oh
I
no, no, no.
definitely think that if you're not nervous at all, maybe you're doing the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe it's time to hang it up and change it up. Like if I think nerves are great. You know,
Yeah.
nerves are great.
What would you say is like a time where you feel like, on kind of on that note, maybe this is the former self, right? But did you ever come into a show or a set and feel like you misjudged the crowd, and then how did you recover from that?
Oh yeah, you know what? Like that doesn't happen a ton. I feel like it happened like two or three times where like, you know, you get this like weird show or whatever. But it happened to me this year, and I got an offer to play in South Carolina at Clemson University, and they wanted me to play like the opening night of this venue, but they didn't promo it, they didn't do anything, like nothing. And I like just came in, and I think they were under the impression that like, oh, if we book an artist, like it's gonna be rage, you know. But like as part of throwing events and everything, you got to get the word out. Like, if you don't get the word out, you could have
Matter. Yeah.
whatever, Calvin Harris playing there, and no one's gonna know. You know what I mean? So I got there, and the bar was like filled with more of like a country crowd, as you can imagine. So I took everything out that I was gonna play and tried to put in like more mainstream vocals, and that still wasn't the vibe. They're like, no electronic, like we don't like this. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
well, gotta finish my set. So those things happen, like, and you just gotta pretend like it's the best show ever and just put on a great face and give it everything you got.
That's pretty funny. Wait, so do you have a manager? Do you have an agent? Do you do most things yourself, or what does that look like?
So I have a manager that I'm working with out of Spain. I don't know if you're familiar with an artist named Andres. He has a
Yeah.
song called Fricatonia.
Yeah,
I'm working with their team
sure.
right now, but we are just on a Sony Records level. Like we're not, they're not like doing full service with me. I book all my shows. I do all my day-to-day stuff. And I think part of finding the right team is to like start small. Like I've worked with 3 or 4 different managers, and had different experiences with each ones and learned lessons with each ones or each manager. And something that I've learned at this point is that, you want to just make sure that the fit's right. It's not about having the manager, it's about having the right one. And going with a manager just for the sake of help can actually be more of a time waster than it is to be efficient. So for anybody who is in that stage and they're trying to find the help, I know it can be frustrating doing everything yourself. I understand more than anybody how taxing it can be and how exhausting it can be, but it'll almost send you in the wrong direction by being with a team that's not right for you.
One thing that I always thought was so cool, and I played college basketball for 4 years. I played overseas for a little bit and paying attention
That's
to.
sick. I never knew that. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Another fun fact, which you reminded me of, you said it earlier, I think, where maybe you're reaching out to someone who's a few leagues ahead of you, and you say to yourself like, am I worthy? Like, can I do this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But a cousin of mine, not first or second, but like distant cousin is Shaq, and so like
Yeah, it's
I've
sick.
connected with him a couple times, but every time I reach out to him, I'm like, should I hit him up now? Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but
You're like, is this the right time? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but oh man, and whatever I was gonna say there, it slipped my mind. Maybe it'll come back to me. What were we just talking about before that?
Talking about finding the right manager.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Ray Allen. I always thought that was so cool that Ray
The
Allen,
Ray Allen. That's amazing.
the Ray Allen was his own agent. I found that out one time.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I don't know a whole lot of players that do, but I'm sure he's a boss, so that's cool that he's doing that.
You know what? I love that too. I love hearing that. I did not know that, and I will be at shows or festivals, and I will talk to some people that I think are crushing it, and I'm like, who are you with? And sometimes like, there's been times that you think that like, unless you're with the right team, you're not going to get into A, B, and C. But yeah, I'll meet people all the time that don't have managers and they're doing just fine. And it's like, it's all case by case, and
Yeah.
what's right for you, and how you think you work best. Obviously there are certain people that just have those kind of connections, and those connections are very valuable. But yeah, it's not a rule that you have to have a team, like most people don't. And if I could say like where I see things going, it's like that the artists really do have more power, and the independents do have more power, and these labels that are self-run are like getting playlists and like getting on top 100, like beat ports and like whatever, like it's happening. And I
Wow.
think that probably freaks out the majors big time, but like that's what's happening. And it's really, I think, great, in the position of being an artist.
I'm pumped hearing
Yeah, it's cool. Like,
that.
you know what I mean? It's like we have so many tools like at our disposal, and it's like, you know, in a way, things are less like, gate kept than they've ever been, and that's great for us. It's cool.
Yeah, well, going back to Bowl, which I think you said 585 was the name of the club there that you played at.
585. I think it's 585.
Yeah, that was it. I wanted to confirm that earlier, but I don't remember if I did. So shout out to that venue. But
Yeah, they're amazing.
it's cool you played there, and I'm sure you've played like other places around the world. You talked about the eclecticness of different US cities. Let's just talk like what is it like playing to different cultures? For example, I remember just as a show goer, I've been to some big festivals in the US, not any EDC in the US, but I went to EDC Mexico City and I
Oh, that's
noticed
probably amazing.
it was dope for sure. And it's like you're in Mexico City. It's like, cool. But uh the the American and Canadian fans, I think probably most artists would agree. We're really good fans. Like we're gonna be
Hmm,
jumping up and down, going crazy. I noticed Mexico City, it was like there was a lot of people there, but not everyone in the crowd was going nuts. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah. It's just you just see a different energy, right? Like, yeah, no, that's a good point. So before we get into that, speaking of Mexico City, it's one place that I would really like to play. And just in the last like 3 weeks, I have this one song called "Poppin'" with Space Rangers. If anybody who's listening wants to check it out, and for the longest time, my song "That Feeling" has been like at the top of my Spotify, and this one just went all the way to the top, like out of nowhere. And like that's what's exciting about being an artist is sometimes you can release a song and just like nothing happens for 2 years and then it totally changes. This is a great example of that. All of a sudden, Poppin' goes all the way to the top, gets all these listeners, and it's like all Mexico City. I'm like, Mexico City? I'm like, I gotta go play Mexico City. So anyway, they're gonna put that on the list. I gotta go play there right now.
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of my favorite parts about our job and what we do is that like you get to experience different cultures, and playing in different places is so rewarding. And I understand why artists get tired in touring and everything, but I also see like how could you ever complain, because it's like the biggest blessing in the world. And I feel like the farther I go, the more love I receive sometimes. Like I played in like Bali before, in Indonesia, and like those fans are so happy, so excited you're there, like so engaging. Like I love playing New York, LA, Miami, like it's my favorite thing in the world. But like those fans can be jaded. Like when you play in those nightclubs and like whatever, like they've seen it all. Post Malone came yesterday and this person's coming tomorrow. You're like, it's like whatever. But like when you're in like international destinations, especially in smaller places, you feel so much love. Like I did a UK tour with Chicodes, Dioro, and Steve Aoki like a long time ago. And when we were in these like small college towns in the UK, they were amped, like, because they don't like get a lot of acts that come through. So it's like that's like a huge difference between these big cities and the small cities. Small cities, like you get a lot of love, and that's like really cool.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Um, well, our founder at House of Hustle, Patrick, I know you're listening right now. He's based in Cabo, so I'm sure you got some Mexico City's connections for Danny. You heard that.
Oh, let's go, Pat. I'm ready, dude.
He's ready. Take the
Yeah,
jacket off. Let's go.
dude, Cabo's not a bad place to live, man. I'm jealous. That's great.
I was been there once, and I've always loved San Diego's weather. I mean, and where you're at too. It's like basically the best consistent weather in the world.
Oh, it's very, yeah, we're lucky for sure.
But I was shocked at how much Cabo is kind of like where you're at too. Just the whole Southern California, just very. At least when I was there, blue skies, sunshine every day for like 10 days in a row. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's really crazy. We've had some kind of wacky weather like the last 2 years in LA where we got like a lot of rain, but like every year before that I lived here, like it just wouldn't rain. And you're like, this is crazy. And like whenever it rained, it'd be like a big deal. Like, oh, gotta get cozy today. You know what I mean? Gotta like grab a blanket and
Oh
like watch
yeah.
something.
And Floridians, man. Any chance we go Fahrenheit here, but anytime it's dropping below 50, it's a chance to put on the hoodie and the sweatpants.
Great. That's a great example. Yeah, yeah. In Florida, it's like it gets cold. You're like, oh, we gotta have a fire. Like you gotta do a fire. Yeah, that's hilarious. But yeah, I totally understand both of those situations.
What's it like? What's the European vibe? Well, you talked about the UK, but you played in Croatia, so I'm also wondering, are the people there, is the vibe of the crowd different there, and in what way?
Yeah, it seems like to me, whenever I've done anything in Europe, it's a different listener, a different type of partier. You know what I mean? Like different type of club goer. Sometimes, depending on what you're doing in the US and what you're doing in Europe, it's hard to compare because if I'm doing like a college show with kids who are like 18 to 22, like you're going to have a different show experience even if you do the exact same thing in a different country. Like it's just different. But like the nightclubs in Europe, people dress very nice and they're always looking great, where I feel like, and when you go out in the US, it's like everyone's more casual vibes, where like in Europe it's like more dressy. But
Sure.
you definitely have listeners, and I like playing in Europe because I have listeners in Europe that like appreciate music that I enjoy a lot. You don't get as many requests, that's for sure,
Okay,
in
that's
Europe.
cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, and the same thing that I was saying a few minutes ago. It's like when you play in a different place and they know that you're from somewhere like the US or LA, I think they're a little more patient with you probably than someone who's local. And I think that's nice too, because they kind of try to see what you're about before going crazy on you, you know?
Yeah. How do you manage requests?
Um, I think it really okay. So, different from like 10 years ago, I'd really be like, because I've done these open format clubs and you get requests all the time, and that was kind of part of the job at that time. Like when
Sure.
I was doing those gigs, that's kind of part of the job. I went from being very attentive, listening, taking requests, and if I had it, I would absolutely play it. To times where guys would throw me $20 bills, and then I was like, awesome, and I was like, this is great. And then it moved on to the paid request, which was awesome. And then when I'm doing more like big shows, like if I'm like with like a guardrail and you're like doing like a venue thing and people are like putting up things, I usually don't address them directly because it kind of throws me off my game a little bit. You know
Sure.
what I
Yeah.
mean? And then you have the type of requester who gets like right up in your grill.
Yeah.
And those ones I think are best to just kind of have fun and continue what you're doing. Because yeah, you just sometimes taking the wrong request can definitely throw off the vibe of the room.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
that's
have to be careful.
because I to be honest, I have not done a lot of gigs throughout my career yet, and that's one of the number one things I'm most intimidated about is when I do have to face that monster and what it's even going to look like.
Yeah,
I've
because
done
it's not
some.
fun, to
Yeah.
say no. It's not fun. It's like I don't
Right.
like want to let someone down, but
But if their rule of thumb is kind of, if they're all up in your grill requesting something, that's kind of like a red flag to just don't play that one.
yeah, I mean, like, let me give you a scenario that I have seen play out a few times. The room is vibing and it's amazing. Everything's cool, and you have like one person and their friend who want to hear this song that they used to listen to growing up, and it's like they want to make the two happy, or do you make the 150 happy? And I think you got to go with the 150. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't let that throw off the vibe you're building, and like that's just part of it. And I think I've learned to feel more comfortable with declining a request here and there.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you see tech? Well, would you consider yourself tech house as your main focus, or what's your yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I would say like, I'm tech house is like my sound. And while we're on the topic of tech house, I think that it has become such a loose term thrown around, and sometimes like like I was talking about tech house back in 2011. One of the CDs that I got like while I was in Ibiza is a tech house CD that I still listen to. Tech house has been around forever. You know what I mean? Like tech house didn't come on the scene when Fisher got popular. Like tech house has been a great genre for a long time. And I think like now when people talk about tech house, they refer to those kind of things. I see it like a little differently. I see it kind of like as a subgenre of electronic, like trance or whatever. Like it's a sound I like, and there's different ways to interpret tech house, but I definitely consider myself that. And house music as a whole has always been my real passion. So anything under that house umbrella is what I consider Danny Quest.
Where do you, I guess, where do you see tech house going in the next 3 years? Like, because personally, I think it's pretty exciting to see one, how well Fisher has done. Two,
Amazing. It's so good.
like
Yeah.
what James Hype is doing, I think is probably in my opinion, a first for the industry. I can't think of any tech house people have just blown up like that. I don't know. I guess John Summit kind of fits in there too somewhere. But yeah, I mean, where do you see this going moving forward, the industry?
Well, something that I've noticed and I think is a good indicator for the future is that like tech house and club music, like in general, is so much more widely accepted than it was 5 years ago. And by that I mean as someone who's gigged for a while, and when I talked about playing in college and stuff, like it's gone all the way from what the hell is this to like this isn't that type of party to this is what we listen to when we're out. And I feel like tech house and club music are like this is what we listen to when we're out. I haven't been to a party in LA in 3.5 years, 4 years where they're not playing that. So that's kind of wild to me that like it's just known like, oh, that's one of the things you could hear when you're out at a party. I think that's great for the stability of the genre in the future. Yes, things are going to change. You can see things are really heavy in the Afro lane right now, and Latin tech house is really big, and like that's like kind of what's like hot at the moment in that world. But like I think tech house and house as a genre is so much more of a solidified like culture now than it was.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And it just
I think it's such a good time to be doing this.
It's such a good time to be doing this. It's such a fun time to be doing this. And it's not.
It feels like that 2010 to 2013 classical EDM era. Like, but that's what is happening now.
Right? Yeah, it's like you've got these guys like Dom Dollar and John Summit and stuff who are like doing god tier things. Like they're doing Madison Square Garden and headlining these Coachellas and like that's pretty wild that like we're at a place that like underground music is on the main stage. Like that's shocking to me. I remember when Fisher did like what's Chicago Lollapalooza, and like it was like, so we're not used to that because it used to be like slander and these like trap artists, and then now you're like having Fisher play lose. It's just different.
I forgot about that. There was that trap phase. There was
trap. Yeah, I think that was post 2010, 2013. Then it got 2014, 2017. Slander and whatever doing
trap.
Great. They still are doing great. But
Flostradamus, is that it?
Yeah, and RL Grime and that kind of world. But yeah, man, I love that you asked that question. I'm excited for the future. I'm optimistic about the future. I love meeting other people in the genre, people like you. It's like so cool to see someone like as talented as you are, as passionate as you are, and have to say how good at this you are as well. I mean, you're a great speaker, you're a great facilitator, you're killing it. I mean, this is so exciting. The whole podcast entirely is going to do great, and it's cool to be a part of it. So I appreciate it.
Man, thank you. You're now a part of the the Dream Chasers House of Hustle Hall of Fame.
Let's go. It's exciting times. I love it.
I'm actually, and this is just a quick one, but I'm curious. Have you ever played in Brazil?
No, I've never played South America. That would just be so fun. I've never been one, and I see the parties that go on down there, and every single time I see a video, I'm like, like I get FOMO normally, but like FOMO off the charts every time I see something there.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
Mo,
Len,
you say like Mochok, like Mochok doing the parties down there. It's like, oh, like that's real culture. Like it's dope. Yeah.
man, yeah, I think just really South America, and we were talking about it briefly there, but Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, Chile, there's some stuff that I see online too. I'm like, man, there's a lot of people there having a good time. And that's
Great parties.
one geographic area I know we've been able to tap into at House of Hustle too is
Sick.
Brazil. We've had a lot of
Yeah.
Brazilian producers on the label. It's cool to talk about it as if it's like my label now too, right? I'm not getting
Hey,
too
yeah, yeah,
ahead.
dude, come on, man. You're on the squad. You know, you gotta represent. Let's go.
But there we go. So Patrick, we got to get Danny to Brazil and Mexico City, putting it in your
That'd
hand.
be
But
that'd be amazing. That'd be so amazing.
nice dude. Well, as we bring this one down for a landing, I guess we'll end it on some wisdom here, right? So for DJs, producers, really anyone in the industry, I'm sure you can relate. Like I met some dope people in this industry already
Yeah.
that don't even play or make music; they're just in it. Um,
Yep.
so what is your golden nugget for someone, whether they're just getting started or maybe they're even beyond you? I'm sure you got something you could spit here.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to reflect on lessons I've learned most recently, usually. And I think it's you gotta keep the faith with yourself. Um, this year, if I learned a lesson, it'd be that because as a musician, as a producer, as an artist, this journey is long and dynamic, and most people, you've probably heard this before, I'm sure a million times, but most people, view success as this like mountain that you're climbing. And yes, you are climbing a mountain, but you're not always going to be heading up. You're going to have a year that things don't feel as hot as they did. You're going to have months where you feel lost. And during those tough times, you have to, even though you're telling yourself negative thoughts, you have to fight them like all the time and have the faith that you know what you're doing and you're excited about what you're doing, and remember that things can be hard, but know that, like, you know, you're lucky to be in the position you're in, and you got to keep fighting forward. That's definitely my 2 cents right now, is keeping the faith while things are hard, because it's much more difficult in the moment than you think it is, you know.
Man,
Like
yeah.
feeling like quitting is okay. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's like a shameful thing. Like, oh, then why would you ever want to quit? That's life, you know, like whatever. Like, but it's during those times that you have to remind yourself, you know, and back yourself, give yourself your own confidence and say, no, I got this. Like I'm stronger because of it. You know, those are, I would say, some important things to remember.
There's about two or three viral TikTok and Instagram reels in that last 2 minutes there, folks. So get ready for that.
Good. I love that. That's good. That's good.
DQ, man, thank you so much for
Of course,
investing,
brother.
your most valuable resource with us here today, your time. What is you guys, you can go Google Danny Quest, Spotify, Instagram. I think DannyQuest.com. Is that your URL?
Yeah, DannyQuestmusic.com.
Danny Quest Music.
Yes, sir. Yes,
What's
sir.
what's your preference? What's your number one way anyone tuned in right now to go follow up?
I love someone hit me on Instagram, Danny.Quest. I am probably most active there. I feel like you can capture my story there the best. I'm most active with my updates there. But I'm on everything. If you want to check me out, please do. I love SoundCloud. I was really active with my SoundCloud, so check me out on SoundCloud. I was lucky enough to visit the the SoundCloud office last year, and they were fantastic. I love them as a company. So yeah, those are the two places I'd want to highlight.
I love that. And we can cut this out of the interview if it's not accurate, but I just remembered I talked to the team. I think we're going to do this. So guys, if you also go to House of Hustle Ltd.com right now and use the code Danny Quest at checkout, it's going to be I think 15% is where we're going, 15% off.
Let's go. Yes.
Danny Quest, all caps, no spaces at checkout. And if we don't do that, then you guys won't see this part of the interview, but we'll see what we can do.
But if we do, Danny Quest, all capitalized. Let's go.
Hell yeah. All right, Danny. You're the man. Guys, go follow him. And remember, this is Dream Chasers, your home for house music. I'm your host, General Moses. We will catch you guys all in the next episode. Remember, in all you think, say, and do, take it to the next level.